This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com with your Sunday update for this 13th day of June 2010. And now for the real news. Making headlines this week, the newly elected Cameron government in the UK is already coming under fire for the decision of Environment Secretary Caroline Spelman to grant approval for field trials of genetically modified potatoes in Britain. The trials will be testing potatoes that have been genetically modified to resist certain types of potato blights. The intense criticism of the decision comes as bad news continues to emerge about the health effects of genetically modified foods. A recently conducted Russian study into the effects of GMO foods on animals has further strengthened previous studies that show a link between consumption of genetically modified foods and long-term sterility. The study tested the effects of GM soy on hamsters and discovered that declines in fertility and child mortality amongst hamsters fed GM soy increases each generation, with the third generation of test animals being completely sterile. GM soy-fed hamsters also had a 5-fold higher infant mortality rate and other mutations, including hair growing inside their mouths. The big biotech companies have long been accused of attempting to suppress studies that show the ill effects of GM foods, and such suspicions were confirmed last month when it emerged that a powerful agribusiness lobbying organization had worked intimately with the UK government to shape a report on the effects of GM crops. Emails obtained by the press between the Agricultural Business Council and the UK's Food Standards Agency shows how the lobby group shaped a key government report to stress the importance and even the inevitability of GM food adoption in the EU. The council even sent a key official at the FSA an email telling her who they wanted to sit on a steering group looking into the safety of GM foods, a steering group that the lobby group referred to as a public engagement exercise on GM food. Two FSA members, Dr. Helen Wallace and Professor Brian Wynne, have quit their positions at the UK food regulatory body, saying, "The emails, quote, expose how the Food Standards Agency is acting as a puppet of the GM industry by colluding with foreign GM companies to undermine people's access to GM-free food supplies in Britain," end quote. All around the world, people are beginning to stand up to the biotech giants, with Zimbabwe rejecting GM food as food aid for its population, and Haiti turning down $4 million worth of hybrid seeds donated by Monsanto Corporation. Shuneso Pepreki, a soil scientist at the University of Zimbabwe, addressing the government's refusal of GM food aid, said, quote, "Just because we are hungry does not make us accept food which we do not like," end quote. Also this week, BP is facing yet more negative publicity as even corporate-controlled media outlets start exposing the illegal tactics that the company has been using to try to keep the press from reporting on the full scope of the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico.
Every security guard here has given the instructions to every single news crew. You can be with outside of 100 yards of the workers along the boom.
And who's saying that? Because nobody can tell me, unless you're the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, you're the Coast Guard, or you're the military, can you tell me where to go on this public beach?
I can tell you where to go because I'm employed to keep this beach safe. And right now, those are my instructions. I have to keep the workers safe as well.
I'm going to go and try and talk to a worker under the tent. Can I do that?
No.
He's on a break.
You are not allowed to interview any workers.
The workers can talk to the media, according to the BP CEO 2 days ago.
That
word still hasn't trickled down to you all?
We've already heard that one too.
Yeah.
What do you mean you've heard that one? It's true.
The email does not explicitly give you permission to do that.
There are quotes from Doug Suttles that say no one has been barred access to talk to the media, and that it's a misunderstanding, and the word hasn't trickled down to all the appropriate channels yet. That's what he said 2 days ago. So 2 days later, that word still hasn't trickled down.
The word has been briefed to us.
By whom? Who's briefing you all?
That's not important right now.
Well, if you're telling me that I can't do it, it's important that I know who's briefing you.
What's important right now is you cannot talk to the workers. You're interfering with their jobs right now.
If there's somebody on break, I'm interfering with his job?
Yes. You're interfering with his rest.
In other news, you are watching a man in front of a green screen reading from a teleprompter. If you are not using the links provided in the video description to start researching these stories for yourself, then you are missing the point. Finally this week, Japan's new Prime Minister Naoto Kan is warning that the country will have to implement a tough new round of fiscal austerity measures or face a Greek-style collapse. Japan has the largest debt-to-GDP ratio in the developed world, but unlike many countries, Japan is a net lender, and 95% of the nation's debt is held by Japanese investors. The comments from Prime Minister Khan come on the heels of a G20 finance ministers meeting in Busan that concluded that the time for fiscal stimulus is over and nations around the globe will have to implement tough new austerity measures in order to bring the global sovereign debt crisis under control.
G20 finance ministers issue a statement saying public finances must be brought into line to calm global markets. Their meeting here in South Korea came as a debt crisis continued to ripple through Europe.
The recent events in southern Europe highlight the importance of sustainable public finances and the need for our countries to put in place credible and growth-friendly measures to deliver fiscal sustainability. Those countries with serious fiscal challenges need to accelerate the pace of consolidation.
As many economic analysts are noting, what this represents is not a step toward economic recovery, but a step further toward total economic collapse. Even George Soros, the billionaire who is criminally convicted of insider trading in France and who made his fortune by breaking the Bank of England, has warned that this is only the beginning of a new act in the unfolding economic Armageddon. Quote, "The collapse of the financial system as we know it is real and the crisis is far from over," he said at a conference in Vienna. Indeed, we have just entered Act 2 of the drama. As many observers have noted, the current economic crisis, brought about by the issuing of quadrillions of dollars of phony wealth in the form of collateralized debt obligations, credit default swaps, and other exotic instruments with the full aid and complicity of governments and the finance sector, is now being used to strengthen the international regulatory framework that has allowed this situation to develop in the first place. Now stay tuned to CorbettReport.com for episode 133 of the Corbett Report, Wars and Rumors of Wars, where we talk to Gerald Salente of TrendsResearch.com and Zach Fillingham of GeopoliticalMonitor.com about the prospects for war and peace, both long and short term.